All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Startup Theory. My name's Jack,
And my name's Eric.
and we're two cats here in San Diego that went to school together, started businesses while we were in our undergrad. I myself am the co-founder of Bold Brew.
And I started Shred Lights with a buddy. We make lights for skateboards.
Yep, and we just wanted to start this podcast as a way to, instead of going wide on a lot of subjects but not very deep, we just want to focus on a few subjects that really helped us with starting and running our businesses and going as deep into them as we can to get as much value to you all for starting your own business in the future. So again, it's first episode. We're shaking off the rust, but we're pretty stoked to get this all started. Thanks so much, Eric, for having us at Shred Lights HQ.
Yeah, definitely. We thought it'd be appropriate for the first episode to talk about just getting started. I think a lot of potential entrepreneurs try and get their idea, their million dollar idea perfected before they try and start launching the business. Whereas Jack and I took a much more aggressive approach to just trying to get going with the business and learn as we go. And I think there's a lot of advantages with not only a business but different things in life with just kind of getting started and learning as you go, just for the sake of not waiting longer to get started. So today we got a couple stories from both of us just
Yep.
about how that's worked out, for the good or the worse for us, and just kind of all about that theory.
And really, what better first topic for just getting started than the first episode of us just getting started with this
Exactly.
podcast? Like, just to set the stage for you all, we're recording this on some old mics that I had with iPhone camera
Yeah.
and Eric's MacBook. So
And
if that's not a perfect example of just hodgepodging it together to get it out the door, I don't know what is.
And literally, what got us sitting on this couch at 6:50 p.m. on this Wednesday was I gave Jack a call on my way to work the other day and just told him about this idea of starting a podcast. So right after the call, he sent me a calendar invite, and
Yeah.
here we are. So it wasn't too much thinking. We're just getting started.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, if I kind of want to just go on that same vein, it doesn't have to be perfect, whatever you're doing. If we would have had, Jake, or I'm going to call you Jake a million times, dude,
Yeah,
with
that's
this
all right. I'll get used to
scenario.
it.
So Eric has, plenty of like good camera equipment. Like he got his undergrad in film and media. Um, but that's like, it's complicated. We don't need like a fancy camera just to get something out the door. Like we're in 2020 now. Like everybody has.
That being said, we are trying to get that set up.
Yeah.
I just couldn't figure it out before this podcast.
Yeah.
So instead of waiting to get that figured out, we're rolling with the camera now.
Bet
But
you didn't think this was an iPhone camera though, as you're
4K
watching this.
coming soon.
And that, I mean, people are probably even listening to this too, so they don't even get the camera jokes. But I mean, on the audio too, these are just like mics that we had hanging around. And so anyway, that's the first kind of example of getting it out the door and just getting started. Is if you get a little bit too worried about having the perfect equipment all the time, it typically doesn't even matter. You probably have something just fine right out the door. So anyway, with that kind of quick segue into getting started on any stories, Eric, do you want to start with any stories of businesses that you started, maybe not even Shred Lights, that you applied just a quick approach to getting started with?
Yeah, definitely. I guess I can kind of talk about, the idea of just getting started is what got me my role at Shred Lights. So just quick background, I didn't actually invent Shred Lights or come up with the name. I joined the team and then through a process of a few years ended up becoming the CEO and a partner in the company. But kind of just rewind on how I was asked to be on the team. So basically I grew up in Minnesota, and while I was in Minnesota, I was going to thrift stores all over the state.
Yep.
Looking for used Air Jordans. And I'd kind of found this just like weird scenario where all these like somewhat expensive shoes, not like $300, but like a lot of shoes that were, over $50 were being sold for like literally $1.99 at Goodwill. So once I kind of found my first pair and I realized that, I could buy these for $2 and sell them for $50, I was like, all right, this is worth my time. Long story short, I ended up making about $5,000 just flipping shoes in school.
Damn. The original sneaker plug.
Yeah.
The Minnesota connection.
And so yeah, when I came out to San Diego to go to San Diego State, I like wanted to take this idea somewhere, and I didn't really know where to take it. So I went into the entrepreneurship center, and I knew that was like a logical first step. I'm like, all right, I have no idea how to take, finding used shoes at a thrift store into a actual business. But I was like, I know what I can do is just go into the entrepreneurship center
Yeah.
and hopefully find some people that, are similar minded, might be able to do that.
Zero experience.
Exactly. So kind of like right from the get go, I was like, how do I just kind of throw myself into the right environment where this might work out? And so basically, I ended up going into the Zon Center, and I applied to start a team there. And my company was going to be called the Steez Depot. Still, no one else has started a business on that.
Hey.
Still love that name.
Hey, it's steezdepot.com still online. Maybe not for long.
It is not.
Oh, dang.
Basically, I was just like super excited to get my website started. Not knowing at all how to make a website. Zero experience making a website to this point. So I just started hitting Google, finding different articles.
Yeah, because like, what did you do in high school? Were you like, you didn't have any website experience? And,
not at all.
Yeah,
nope.
like you like played lacrosse in high school.
Yeah.
And like hockey and hung out with friends.
Like definitely didn't like have much technical hobbies in high school. Where I was like, I wasn't even making videos really nice.
Yeah, you weren't some like whiz kid that was like born into it by any means. Yeah,
not at all. And so I just kind of had the mentality like, you know what, I think this is something I can figure out. So basically, ended up spending a couple months, learned how to make a really shitty website, but it was a website, and you could literally go to thesteezdepot.com, and I was so proud of that.
Yeah.
And I knew I had a long way to go to like actually start the business. The website was just a small step of that. Fast forward here a little bit, but basically, I had this website up, and I kind of started to lose passion in the idea, mainly because I'm a skateboarder, surfer, snowboarder. I'm not super into the sneaker culture.
Sure. Yep. You're not a hype lord or anything like that, or a hype beast.
See, exactly. And it's totally cool if you are. Like, follow whatever you're into.
Yep, absolutely.
No problem on that. Nope. But like,
probably got 10 times better style than me.
But I just like kind of started to lose passion, and I think I learned like that was a good lesson for me to like learn that you gotta have a passion in something if you're gonna put hours and hours and hours into this. And early on, I kind of saw like, okay, this isn't something I want to put, 2 or 3 more years of my life into,
Yeah.
It's just kind of fun right now. So even like just that was already like.
And that was like doing semi-well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like one lesson I'd already learned in the first 2 months of just getting started.
Right.
Like I'd learned, okay, passion is really important. You don't want to just hop into something just for the money. You do have to be passionate about it if it's really going to succeed.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of the X factor that makes a lot of companies successful.
Yeah. And on that same note, that kind of takes a little bit of the bite out of getting started too. Because you might say, oh, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to give this an honest try.
Yeah.
And in 2 months, if you're not into it anymore, no big.
Exactly.
Move on to the next thing.
And I had no problem leaving this business.
Right.
It was like, no sweat. But essentially, the moral of the story is how I got the job at Shred Lights by starting Steez Depot. So I'm working long and hard at the Zon Innovation Center on campus on my website, and I go outside, and kind of in the back of my mind, I discovered that I wasn't super passionate about this idea, and I saw a poster on the wall for Shred Lights, and it was basically just like a 1-page summary of what the idea for Shred Lights was. It said that there was still, pre-product, pre-market. It was just an idea, but they already had the name and the original logo up. And
caught your eye.
Yeah, totally caught my eye. And, like, I am not kidding. Like, here's the door for the Zon Center into a hallway, and I walked out of this door facing straight into this poster. It was like,
prime placement.
A sign from above, like, check this out. So I checked it out. And I saw a contact on there for the founder. And basically I reached out to him, and I said, hey, like, I am passionate about skateboarding. That is a passion that I know I have. I love to skateboard. And this is a genuinely good idea. I've been stuck outside skating at night so many times and using my, my phone flashlight.
Yep.
So I emailed the founder, and I'm like, hey, man, I think your idea is really cool. I'd love to just meet you, and like kind of squeaking it at the end, like, is there any opportunity to join the team?
Sure,
like
right.
Thinking like, this is a sick startup, and I can see this going places.
Yeah.
So he emails back, and he says, hey, Eric, sure, I'm happy to meet you, always down to skate together, was just super nice, and kind of ended his email with, we're not looking for any employees right now, but we are looking for a website. do you happen to know anyone that can build a
Bum,
website?
bum,
So boom, what did I do?
bum.
Replied and I
Yeah.
said, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
I can build you a website.
Yeah.
Even though I still barely could,
Sure.
I did actually know how to build a website
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And just getting started with
Steve's deep,
Steve
baby.
had taught me that very rudimentary skill, but I was able to send him a link to the steve'sdepot.com.
Yep.
So right off the bat, he thought, okay, this kid knows how to buy a domain, link it to a website,
Yep.
you know, and for whatever reason, he was like really stoked on my website. He thought it was sweet. So like right there,
Probably was.
now he replies again and he goes, all right, sure, we'll give you $80 to build the first Shredlights website.
Ka-ching.
And that's literally how I started getting involved with Shredlights. You know,
Uh-huh.
there's a lot more that follows that got me to where I am today. But like, still, had I never just got started and just started making the Steve's Depot business, which never made a dollar, you know, not counting like what I was making at the thrift store, but like once I officially started Steve's Depot, I never made a dollar from it. I only lost time and money on it in one sense. But on the other sense, the time I invested to start the Steve's Depot, you know, which is probably 50 hours or so,
Yeah.
not a crazy amount of time.
Sure.
You know, it was enough. It wasn't so much time that I couldn't fit it between classes.
Yep.
Then it had basically created this killer resume for me to then get brought onto the team at Shredlights.
And the best part too is that you just got started with something super small. You invested 2 months of time into it, like nothing
Exactly.
crazy. Like you could apply that to like learning Spanish or something. You know, you put 2 months
Yeah.
into learning Spanish. You go to Spain for a week. Bada bing, bada boom. That 2 months pays off. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
So,
so
yeah.
moral of the story is that first door I opened, you know, led to many, many more doors, and now, you know, I'm here
Yeah.
working for myself, and you know,
yeah.
telling you it's paid off.
I wish that we could. I mean, for those that are listening, we have just a giant Shredlights sign above us, and we'll get it in the frame another day. But yeah, this guy runs the show now, all from that. So it's pretty keen.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. So I know Jack has a good story with his YouTube channel that he
Oh, yeah.
started, kind of on a similar vein. We were kind of like we're the same age,
Yep.
so we were kind of at a similar point where we were both like super interested in starting something,
Yeah.
but we just didn't know what.
Right. Yep. So I grew up in Missouri, St. Louis, and I went to San Diego State for school, and that's where I met Eric. And I was in Boy Scouts and stuff growing up, you know, and so that's where I
Seemed
had
like a
that
Boy
like
Scout.
that's where I had that like passion itch that we've been talking about on, you know, I wanted to start something in that space, and so, but I didn't know what, you know, I always thought that creating some type of cool camping equipment would be really tight.
So that's interesting. So you
Yeah.
started with passion
Right.
and then tried to figure out money, whereas I started with money and then tried to figure out passion.
Well, yeah, so that's something that I always recommend to folks that come to me for advice on stuff like this is the best place that I have had the experience to start with is stuff that you like already. Like
Yeah.
just, you know, take an hour, just sit down with a pen and paper and just start writing down shit that you like, you know? And that's unique to everybody. And the reason that I always say starting with stuff that you like is because that helps you be a little bit more sticky to whatever like work that you put into it. So
Yeah.
in your case, you liked money. And so the money,
That's
but the
true.
money was coming in. So
Yeah.
that like kept you sticky to it, which was great. And
Definitely.
so, anyway, that's a piece of like practical advice because it's unique to anybody. So in my personal scenario, I really liked outdoor backpacking, you know, camping, backpacking and stuff like that. And I really liked outdoor gear. I thought that it would be like,
You knew you were good at it too. Like not only did you like camping,
sure.
but like I could come camping with you and you could get a totally inexperienced camper set up for the
Yep.
weekend and I could have a blast.
totally.
You were
Yep.
good at it too.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, that's a good point. Yeah, it'd be like that's on that same vein. Like I liked basketball, but I'm not
Yeah.
good at basketball, so it's
Exactly.
like I probably shouldn't. Maybe I could do something in basketball one day, but I wouldn't. So the okay, great point. But anyway, so the advice that I give to people is starting in a realm that you like because you'll stick around with it a little bit longer. But the point related to kind of like the foreboding thing of like starting a big outdoor equipment company is like, what do you even make? You know, like, am I going to sell tents? Am I going to sell coats? Am I going to sell sleeping bags? Like, that stuff's really expensive.
It's
Like,
hard to
and
make. Yeah,
it's
that's
so
tough.
overwhelming,
Yeah.
like right from the get-go, and you're like, the analysis paralysis kind of comes into play. You're
Definitely,
like,
yeah.
oh, geez, like,
yeah.
what's even the point? You know, the North Face, Patagonia, they're already like selling stuff. So instead of spending a lot of time trying to think of a product and think about how I was going to source this in a manufacturing facility and a blah blah blah. I was like, you know what? What if I just started making content and just talking about companies that I liked already and just building an audience. So instead of investing all this money into like
So
hard
hold on,
products.
rewind
Go
a
ahead.
second.
Yeah, yeah.
So did you just like think one day like I need to build an audience, or like how
Well,
like how did that idea come about?
yep. So here on that same note. So I didn't have a lot of money, but I had a good amount of time. And
Okay,
so I was like, so what can I spend my time doing that I can still be working towards a goal?
interesting.
And so I was like, I can't, I wasn't making a lot of money at my job and I was in school.
Yep.
But I was just kind of doing school. And so on the weekends or even in the afternoons, I wasn't doing a whole lot. And so I just figured the audience thing, thanks for kind of bringing that up. The audience thing is kind of like a sophisticated way of saying like, oh, I'm just going to build an audience, which is kind of like a shortcut that I'm telling these people now. I guess what my thought was, I can just start making, I can start giving my advice to people. Like
Yeah.
sort of like
Okay.
I don't have any money to like buy things, but I can tell people things.
You have the knowledge.
I have the knowledge, right? Exactly. And so, how do I tell the most people that knowledge the best that I can? Because again, the only reason that I had the knowledge about all this stuff is because I liked it. I was interested in it. Like
Definitely.
on the weekends and at night, I'm looking up YouTube videos myself of like different types of things. I'm looking up articles online. I'm reading magazines. I'm like going to REI and looking at gear because I was into it. And so,
Hmm.
this is just an example for people that are listening. Like, that could apply to skateboarding. You go to the skate shop, or like if
Definitely.
you really like, cosmetics, you go to the cosmetics store and you go and check out the different things that they have there. If you like food, you go to the grocery store or the farmer's market and you check out all these cool new ingredients. So um, basically, the way that I kind of, instead of starting a company but still to like be productive, I was like, I'll start a YouTube channel. A YouTube channel is free. I've already got an iPhone, which most people have an iPhone or an Android phone similar that have great cameras. I'll just set up my iPhone and I'll just start making a couple videos about gear that I already had in my closet. And so that's kind of an example to people like, if you're interested in some sort of topic or subject matter, you probably already have like stuff related to it. If you like boxing, you probably already have boxing gloves.
Hmm.
If you like woodworking, you probably already have some knives. So just getting out a phone or a camera and just making a video about why you have a particular item that you have and putting that out onto the internet. Because go
And
ahead.
to kind of like bring it back to the original point,
Yeah,
like it never crossed your mind to go like buy a new bag and be like, I'm gonna go buy
sure.
like a popular bag and then review that,
Right.
because that's like an honest
Sure.
approach that some people might take, is like, well, my bag's outdated, so I'm gonna go try and save up and spend $200 on a
Ah,
new bag.
right.
But you didn't. You knew that wasn't feasible, so
Right.
you weren't gonna let that stand in your way from getting
Yeah,
started.
totally, totally. Like the first video that I made was of an outdated backpack,
Yeah,
but I just got it out there to like get the rust off, sort of like this
to
podcast.
practice. Yeah, yeah,
Practice,
perfect. Yeah,
exactly. And this is the cool thing on that same vein about just getting started and getting something out the door, because the first video that I made, like, it's not super great, but the 10th video that I made is pretty darn good now.
yeah,
But I wouldn't have gotten to number 10 had I not started stacking with number 1. And
exactly.
so
You can
the
count to 10.
second video got a little bit better, third video got a little bit better. And so that's kind of like the point with all this starting now um, vein that we're on, is understanding that, version 1 is going to be a little bit crummy, but
Yeah,
that's okay because you have to go through version 1 to get to those nicer models in the future. And
for
it's just
sure.
incremental growth, little
Yeah,
by little.
and to kind of put this all in perspective, like you might be saying, like, okay, yeah, sure, like Elon Musk was successful at Tesla. Well, actually, he wasn't successful at Tesla very quickly, but like, obviously, seasoned entrepreneurs, they can, really work an idea before they get it out the door. So a lot of this kind of advice is coming from two people that hadn't started a business. So if you've never
Right.
started a business, obviously, this is going to be super important that you get something out the door. sure, there is a time and a place where you do want to perfect it before you get out the door, but you're not going to be successful with that if you've never done it before.
Right.
So when you see people come out the gate and be really successful, it's because they've had past experience, and they might not be telling you everything that led them to get to that successful launch, but they definitely had it.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Just to kind of take that into account, because there's always a counter argument, right?
No, absolutely. And again, on that same vein, there's a lot that's going on in the background with all these successful people that we don't know about.
Yeah,
and
that like got them there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So comparing yourself to those folks is a losing battle.
Exactly.
And so don't get down on yourself for those very first ones, or even second or third ones that you're getting out, if they're not perfect, because in every scenario, everybody successful has had those like first 2 or 3 bad go-abouts that didn't really work out.
But they had to have them.
Exactly.
You have to start there.
You have to. You have to.
And this is kind of a concept that we learned a lot about in school. One of our professors wrote a book called Fail Fast, Win Big. And he always kind of encouraged this mentality of like getting out there with failure being pretty much inevitable.
Yeah.
Like success rate being super small.
Yep.
And doing something pretty much knowing you're going to fail with the mindset of you're going to learn something.
Right.
Like from every failure, you can always learn something.
Yep.
And so this is kind of like, we didn't necessarily make this up. Like our professor was definitely telling us about this. And this is like, a pretty well-known concept.
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, just trying to like figure out how to learn something. And it might work out, like there are people that start a successful company on their first try, but like they probably didn't go into the business with that mindset. They didn't start like, this company is going to be successful. It was more like, I'm going to try this, and if it keeps working, I'll keep sticking with it,
And there are so many kind of baked-in resources and tools to your disposal that you can use to do small little tests to get started with whatever idea that you're working on. So like, for example, if you have an idea where you want to start some type of app and you can't code something like right off the back of a napkin or anything like that, or you can't afford to have somebody code it for you, maybe try to start like a small Instagram page that you can channel people to. Maybe try a Facebook group that you can get some users using to organize them with whatever idea that you have going on. Maybe post some things on Craigslist to do customer interviews with.
So I recently saw like another interview with the guys that started this truffle hot sauce company.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard this story?
I haven't heard their story, but I've seen their product. It's rad.
Right?
Truff.
So let me blow your mind real quick.
Okay, blow it.
So they okay, so they basically just like one dude, and he was kind of just messing around trying different usernames on Instagram, just trying to see like, are there any good usernames left?
Right.
Like just obvious words.
Right.
And he ended up stumbling upon the username Sauce.
Oh, wow.
So he realizes like, holy shit, I can make this handle just at Sauce.
Yeah.
So then basically he started this thing and was just totally experimenting. And he just started basically curating content on the web. And he started finding like good hot sauce content, which I didn't even think existed, but it does. And he basically started building this thing up to 10,000 followers, just curating content.
Just reposting other people's photos content of like good sauce photos, like sauce it photos.
Exactly.
But let's be clear, like sauce the condiment.
Yes.
Not
hot
like
sauce. Yes.
It's not like sausage shoes or anything like that.
No. And not only like not any sauce, just hot sauce.
Right.
So it was like he was like specifically finding people that were super interested in high quality hot sauce content, which sounds like such a random crazy thing.
Right.
So he keeps growing this audience and gets it to like 10,000 people. And he goes to his friend and is like, holy shit, like, I think we have to do something with this.
Yeah.
So first he basically found the audience, and then they started doing market research in the hot sauce market. But going backwards, he never started this Instagram with the mindset of like, this is eventually going to turn into a business. It was just like, I like hot sauce.
Yeah.
I'm going to find other people
out
on
Instagram
that like hot sauce.
Yeah, right.
And that was like his only goal, was to like find other enthusiasts of hot sauce like himself.
Yep.
And then once he built up his audience, they did the market research and found that there was really no brand targeting like premium hot sauce.
Wow.
Which isn't really, it really wasn't a category.
Sure.
Like, even at, the local grocery store, any of the bottles are going to be, an expensive one's going to be like $7.99, but most of them are in that like $3-4 range. And they were like, let's make a $20 bottle of hot sauce. That's just like a premium hot sauce.
Right.
And then now they have like almost 100,000 followers.
Wow.
You've heard of their hot sauce. I've seen it everywhere.
No, their hot sauce is blowing up right now.
Yeah,
it's badass.
And it's just like crazy how like they didn't want to start a hot sauce company. They basically just like fostered this opportunity, but it was so good that it was like we'd be dumb not to.
And from the sounds of it too, Eric, it sounds like he didn't spend any money on like making hot sauce photos or anything like that.
No,
he just had a free Instagram handle.
Yeah, he didn't think like I gotta go shoot.
He just spent time on it.
Yeah.
He was just like he just spent time looking online for Instagram content and curating it. Yeah.
And like if it had never gotten traction, if it like turned out that there was no hot sauce enthusiasts out there to follow his page, it would have been fine.
No harm, no foul.
And like he was saying, he had a job at the time, and he could have just continued working at the job, and it would have been a fun little experiment. But instead, now that's his full-time career. Right. Now he owns his own business.
Right. No, they're huge
and
now.
he'll probably sell it, for millions of dollars.
I think I saw like Kim Kardashian was using that stuff.
Exactly.
Like, it's on fire.
Like, look at that. Yeah. And like, he probably honestly would not have been successful if he from step one was like, I want to start a premium truffle-based hot sauce company.
Right.
Getting that off the ground would have been so much more difficult. But starting with that first idea and then like kind of realizing like I should do something with this audience.
He totally just backed into it. Yeah. No, absolutely.
And truffle hot sauce, dude. I don't know what your name is, but if you ever listen to this podcast, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah. Hey, I think he's in LA, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's a loke dog.
Like there you go.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Actually,
how sick would it be if just starting this podcast tonight ended up us getting connected to this guy that we're talking about?
No, well, it's kind of funny because I know the guy who knows the guy, and so we might be able to make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Shout out Steven. Okay. Anyway. No, but so I'm glad that you brought up that story too, because the Bushwhack Jack story, the YouTube channel is one thing, but that's a real.
Sorry, did we ever get to the end of that story?
No, that
was
literally
that.
Well,
so like, where's Bushwhack Jack today?
Oh, okay, yeah.
How did it end up? Like, was it successful in your eyes?
Absolutely. Well, it's still ongoing, and so this is another crazy thing too about just like starting and putting stuff out there. I think I've got about 15 videos on it right now, right?
Okay.
And I reviewed, a couple backpack stoves. I did a repair video, and one video that I did with a friend of mine was how to re-wax a surfboard at night. And it's a pretty funny. You've seen it.
I've seen
and,
comments.
Yes. So the funny thing about this, I put it on YouTube and it got reposted on like a surfing repair website that got a ton of traffic. And so that
Did
video,
you ask them to repost it?
No, it was just they stole it from me basically. But But they posted like a link to my video. So anytime that my video played on their website, I got views on my video. And so that video right now has like 97,000 views. It's insane. And it's just because we put it online, and it's a silly video of me waxing a surfboard with my friend James.
Yeah, it's like 15-minute video, right?
Yeah. And it's awesome. It's so that's just a good example of, again, like I just kind of stayed a little consistent with doing a low budget video with a buddy of mine for a piece of knowledge that we had in our head that we just wanted to share with people on film.
Yeah.
And it's cranking views. It gets like 250 views a day. Yeah. It's crazy.
Dude, let me just note for a second that I studied film in school for 4 years. I graduated. I would consider myself a pretty solid filmmaker. I don't have any videos with 97,000 views. Meanwhile, this guy who made it all on his iPhone has way more views
at
than
like
me. Like,
night with
about
bad lighting. Yeah, exactly. On like a flimsy tripod.
Yeah, I mean, there's reasons that I could break down, but like it's just like amazing to me that like this dude's killing it on views compared to me.
Yeah, it's well, you do a great job, Eric. Don't worry.
Like I said, we could break it down, but it's not important. Like it's just sick. Like good for you.
Thank you.
Like I'm not salty about it. It's awesome.
Yep. And so again, it's a lesson to us all here that it can be low budget, but if you just have a friendly demeanor and you're excited about whatever you're creating content about, that will translate into excitement with your viewers too. And thus that excitement of that audience will translate to eventually, hopefully, leading you into a new business venture. And so this is kind of a neat thing with that same vein of if you have a space that you're interested in, but you don't know exactly what you want to do. Like, so for example, you really like the cosmetic space, but you don't know if you want to do lipstick or moisturizer or beard oil or whatever. If you just start making general content about a general idea of that space, your audience will guide you into what is more and more lucrative in the space and what's more popular and what your audience is looking for more value from. So when you can then cater to the needs of your audience that is guiding you in that direction, that's where you really strike gold. That's where you really find that product market fit, or in this case, your market product fit. So you can be more confident for taking that next step after you've gotten to that start business phase. But staying focused on just getting started right now, without getting too into the weeds.
I got a good story to share.
Yeah, lay it on us.
So this applies more to someone who already has a business, and if you already do have a business, you understand how vital it is to get a small amount of traction before you really invest in an idea. As a startup, you have to be really lean and savvy with your investments. So you can't just be investing in every idea. You have to figure out a super lean way to validate an idea before you can put money into it.
Right. Yep.
So on that note, back in 2017, we're selling tread lights, right? And so at this point, we only have white lights. And so we're trying to think like, okay, we need to increase revenue somehow,
white
right?
front-facing lights.
White headlights, right? And so we're trying to think of this next product. So we're starting to spitball all these different ideas for a new product and everything. And then I decided instead, let's just like ask the customers that we do have, which at this time wasn't very many. Like, what do you guys want to see next? Let's ask them. That seems like, it's a free way to just directly ask our audience, which customer surveys are super important. Every entrepreneur should know that. And we asked them, and they just said, hey, I want taillights. Like, I want a set of taillights to go with my headlights. So we start looking at, the cost of adding a red LED to our circuit board, and kind of like looking at the manufacturing costs of making red lights. And we have all these MOQs with our suppliers.
Minimum order quantities.
Yeah. Minimum order quantities, exactly, with our suppliers. And so, we got to start with like at least 1,000 taillights with them. And there's a cost to developing it. And basically it was going to be kind of like a long and somewhat expensive process that could be very well worth it, but we don't know at this point, right? So we're like, how do we just like figure this out? So I basically go to the store and buy some red paint. And at this point, we're still building tread lights at my house. So I'm able to paint just the lens before I start building the light.
Yep.
And so basically I paint the lens red and turn the light on, and it basically blocks all the light. So like no red light was shining.
It's like dark.
Yeah, it's just dark. So I'm like,
shred shades.
So all right, that was like a fail. But like maybe there is some sort of paint or something that we can put on there.
Yeah.
So I asked my mom, hey, because my mom's pretty crafty.
Yep.
And so
moms are also cheap, typically.
Yes, to get ideas for. So I'm like, hey, Mom, like arts and crafts time. Like, what kind of paint can we add to this that might work? And I forget exactly how it went down, but somehow my brother Wesley overheard. And he was like, dude, just go to the auto store and they make taillight paint. So if you chip your taillight, you can repaint it. And it's translucent red paint made for letting light through and looking red. So I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I need.
Yeah, right.
So I go down to AutoZone. Sure enough, there's this thing of red paint. Basically, start just spraying lenses in my backyard and start making red lenses. The results, certainly not completely red, but we're like, hey, let's see if this works. So basically, quick and dirty, make a set of 2 of these red lights with the AutoZone paint, get some pictures, get them up on our website. Within a month, 70% of our customers started buying front and rear lights together. So in entrepreneurship, a lot of times we talk about average order value.
Yeah.
And so basically we had just doubled our average order value with 70% of our customers. So instead of spending $40, now they're spending $80 on the first purchase.
Yeah.
So it's like revolutionary for our sales numbers.
Right.
Like we basically just doubled our business with this one idea.
Wow.
Meanwhile, like
from asking your audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started asking our audience, and we basically ended up selling like a few thousand taillights that were literally just painted in my backyard. And sure, like we're getting customer feedback that's like, hey, these lights are pink, they're not red. And we're like, right. They're not white. They're close enough.
Yeah.
And customers are like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like it's good enough for now, but like we want to see some legit red lights. So now we're like, okay, we've got some traction. Now it's a no-brainer to invest, $5,000-$10,000 into making actual red lights.
Yep.
So as a lean business now, it's like this is a safe investment that we know our customers are buying. Not only do they want it, but they're actually
Right.
already buying it.
Right.
So then we make the red taillights, and customers are super happy to see that improvement. And then basically we had our second product, which was just taillights.
Yep. Wow.
And so like through that whole journey, we ended up seriously increasing our sales
Yep.
with the same product but just red.
Wow.
And it was like,
Yeah.
To us it seemed like too obvious.
But it was so valuable to your
It
customers.
was so valuable to our customers.
Right. Right.
And had we not just like got those first crappy pink lights out the door, it wouldn't have validated.
You would have
that.
never
we
discovered it,
eventually
yeah.
we would have figured out, but like it helped us figure out soon.
Yep, absolutely. And it's just, and again, typically, here's actually another thing on that same vein of getting started with an idea. Sometimes it doesn't have to be the most expensive option. Sometimes
Yeah.
the most expensive option, maybe if it is expensive, especially in a scenario like this where you're like, oh, wow, that is a little pricey. So you had to explore another option.
So let me pause you for a second,
ahead.
because I think this is basically what you're talking about is an MVP. So this is an entrepreneurship term called the minimum viable product. Basically, what's the bare minimum your customers are willing to pay for? So in my case,
Yep.
it was pink lights. Even though they wanted red lights, they were willing to pay for pink lights.
Right. Yeah. And on, again, the low tech option of just being able to go to your corner store and being able to do that manufacturing like in-house.
Mm-hmm.
So this sort of relates to, there was a thought that a friend of mine, Taylor, brought up that with the toothpaste mentality, where it's like when you have a bunch of toothpaste, you can kind of just use a bunch of it at once, and then you get to the end of it, and you're really like kind of squeezing, like,
Yeah.
you're making the most of every little bit.
Yeah.
Even if you have a lot of like time and maybe money in the bank, if you're at like a mid part of your business, trying to find a lower budget option, again, to test it is sometimes better than just like really going all in on maybe an unvalidated idea.
For sure.
So yeah, that's all.
And I think that's like, large scale, that's how companies go under.
Right.
It's like investing too much in an unvalidated
Too
idea.
much too soon.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Exactly.
Just not like, so getting started lean is definitely a key. You don't want to just get started with, a huge investment.
Even if even at mid stage, you want to apply these fundamentals at any stage of business.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else we got, man? I'm trying to think of. I can bring up the Bold Brew, like just getting started story too.
Yeah, I mean,
because I think that relates to this scenario too. So, I mean, in just getting started with that, Jake and I, we just got started by basically selling our coffee under the table without like a whole lot of experience. We were brewing just big batches of coffee at our apartments and selling to students around town that we were friends with. Obviously, it wasn't a whole lot of strangers, but would buy it without having a like expiration date on it or something like that. And that was all. We didn't know how to brew cold brew coffee at the time. We were brewing based on recipes that we Googled and like, hey, how do you brew? We were watching YouTube videos on how to make cold brew coffee and like talking to different coffee shop owners on how they did their ratios and brew times and temperatures and et cetera, ground like fineness or coarseness. So yeah, I don't know. That's a quick anecdote.
Yeah, and I'm sure like during that research process, you probably discovered like there's a lot of complicated ways to brew cold brew coffee.
Yeah, and a lot of
for you
complicated
guys, you kind of had to
blends.
figure out like what's your version of just getting started. That's like you don't necessarily have to compete with like the Starbucks brew, right?
No,
Like how do you
no.
simplify it massively down to like what's the MVP and like how do we just get started and just like sell someone a jar of coffee?
Let me rewind a little bit on this story actually because no, it's funny. I didn't want to go like full steam ahead on talking about the early stages of getting started with Bold Brew because I don't want to incriminate myself with some maybe health code violations that happened at the early stage. So we're going to hypothetically speaking, obviously. So we're going to fast forward just a little bit to after we got all of our health permitting and how we got started with all of that. So once we had our commercial kitchen dialed in and and all of our ducks in a row, we didn't have like a bottling line or like a big supplier of custom bottles or labels custom labels to get on these bottles. Like we didn't know where to source any of that stuff or how to get it. So what we did early on is Jake did a couple quick YouTube tutorials of how to use Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, to make like a quick label, like like
Yep.
text and a couple lines and a
Yep.
logo in the middle. And we didn't know where to get any bottles either, and so we like Googled where to get glass bottles, like 8-ounce glass bottles in Southern California, and there was this one bottle supplier called General Bottle Supply in Commerce, LA.
Great SEO
Yeah,
name.
exactly. And so, and they sold, you could get like 12 bottles at a time, like one 12-pack of bottles, and
okay.
and lids. And so we didn't have like freight forwarding or anything like that. So we drove up to LA and like fit as many empty glass bottles as we could into our cars with lids, and then drove back down. Like we didn't, and we could have probably even gotten like a 12-pack on eBay or something like that if we just wanted to buy like one 12-pack at a time. And when we were first starting out, dude, we probably only bought like 48 bottles. We probably drove 4.5 hours round trip from LA to pick up like 48 bottles to bring back down and like try to sell around town to local stores when we were just getting, like we spent maybe.
You're not thinking about efficiency.
No.
Yet. You're like,
yeah,
we need bottles. They got bottles.
right, exactly.
Simple as that.
Exactly. And so, and when we were first getting started too, dude, we didn't even have a bottle labeler when we were getting started. Like we got these
I don't
plastic.
even know what that is.
Exactly. It's like a just something that would apply the label to the bottle,
Totally.
like a machine.
Yep.
So what we did was we got 2 Surfer's Journal magazines and rest as like for the height, and put like the bottle next to it, and like rotated the sticker on the, which, because it was pretty much like a sticker from like,
Yeah, I remember those.
like you could get like custom stickers anywhere, like Google like stickers. We got a rectangular sticker and like put them on the outside of the bottle. And so again, it's just like really low budget, low efficiency, like very, very low efficiency, but it got a physical product into our hands that was official, that we could sell into a retailer.
And meanwhile, they got featured on the news like 2 times, 3 times.
Yeah, and like
with that product.
Right. Oh yeah, with like this like very early stage crummy product that like we would be embarrassed to have in PR now. Actually, I'm pretty proud of it. It's it's a good like historical relic. But anyway,
like at that time, like that was your flagship product.
Yeah.
And
right.
the news team was like
Right.
stoked to interview
at,
you guys.
At the time, Eric, you nailed it. At the time, like our in the market product, our MVP, minimum viable product, emphasis on viable, something that we could sell in the store, was something that we drove to LA, drove back down, put a sticker on with a level with 2 magazines, capped, bottled, and got out the door.
And like some more experienced entrepreneurs might tell you like right then, like, stop your idea. That's not scalable.
Oh, sure.
Right? And like had you guys gotten that advice then, you would have been like, fuck off. Like, we're not worried about scale. We're just worried about getting validation. Like, can we sell cold brew coffee?
Right.
If so, how much can we charge? Like, who is this person that wants to buy cold brew coffee? Like,
and
you're
if
answering a lot of those initial questions.
And it's all to get through, because if nobody was buying it, we would have been like, oh, okay, hey, no worries. We spent a day driving back and forth to LA. We spent $30 on bottles and $60 on coffee. No big. But people started buying the coffee, and so little by little it started to grow. So anyway, that's an important nugget on this same vein, is that we're really talking about right now, hey, get that product out the door, start it with something super, super small and get it going. But if nobody's buying it after that, no worries. Move on to the next thing. That goes back to our original sort of like fail fast and then move on. This whole starting and validating your product is just for that. And then the next stage is once people start to buy it. But we're really just talking, if people aren't buying it, if it's like, if you're really, putting yourself out there with that MVP and there's no buyers, that's a perfect indicator to you that, hey, this isn't offensive to you. Like, no hard feelings to you. You as a person did a great job bringing that product to market. There just isn't really a market for it. And so let's try to find something else.
So I think this is a good time to bring up the pivot.
Oh, okay, cool. No, we're good. Keep
still
going.
Recording?
Yep, pretty sure. Yep, we're good.
All right, sweet.
Yep. Sorry, team.
I think it's a good time to bring up the pivot.
Yep.
You're probably familiar with the term, but this plays perfectly into pivoting as a company. Basically, plainly put, a pivot is something a company will do to, change what their mission is as a company. And it's something that you only really have the luxury of doing if you're in business. And
Sure.
a lot of pivots have been like massively successful, including Shred Lights. And
Yep.
that's kind of what I want to talk a little bit about.
So, you know what, Eric? We've been talking for 45 minutes. I think that the pivot would be a great
That's a
topic
good point.
for our next episode.
That's a great point. That's something we should expand more.
Cool. I think that we should let's try to wrap this up though,
Yeah, I think so.
Anything else? Any other like closing thoughts on this topic?
No, I mean, I think like, a lot of the stuff we covered is general stuff, and like, your situation the best. So like,
Right.
what does just getting started mean to you? That's up to you to decide. These are just some examples of like experiences we've had.
Right.
And obviously, there's certain things you want to get started and certain things you want to wait. So use your judgment, but yeah, like go do something new, like just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, with that said, that concludes our first episode of Startup Theory.
There we go, dude. That's a big accomplishment on us. Let's
Yeah,
go.
baby. We don't have like an email or anything going right now, but
Not
we
yet,
should
no.
we should make one.
We're gonna build on this.
Yeah. So we'll say like at this
Next
point.
step is getting our first listener.
Yeah. Right.
Next step is first listener. And then if we can get one listener, that's a little validation, and then we'll have a reason to make a second podcast.
Cool. Well, anyway, I'm Jack.
I'm Eric, and thank you for listening.
Catch you later.